Hello and happy Saturday. Welcome to week 12 of Play Calling with Keenan, brought to you by Incede.ai. We had Thanksgiving football this weekend, lots to look forward to. Let's get into it. Looking back at a recap, not of last week, but of Thursday's Thanksgiving games. We were originally slated for 3 games. Instead, we got 2. Thankful for those nonetheless. We had, first off, the Texans and Lions. Thought it might be a good game for the Lions to possibly sneak back into playoff contention. Nope, didn't happen. Texans looked great. They dominated. Will Fuller looked like a WR1. Deshaun Watson continues to be playing well despite limitations on defense and offense from the Texans. He's having a great year. Texans beat the Lions. The Lions were shut out last week, played horrendous this Thursday, and ultimately cost Matt Patricia and GM the job. So, yeah, the Lions, just another pitiful year. They haven't won a playoff game since 1991. They haven't made the playoffs since Jim Caldwell was fired after going 9-7. Matt Patricia ended up winning 13 games in his 2.5 years in Detroit, and he's gone. He's out of a job. Lions will be shaking up their roster and management, and they just didn't look poor. They looked poor. Wasn't a great game. Blowout. Next game, the Cowboys and the Washington football team. Thought there might be some good game. A lot of hype from the Cowboys, building momentum off a good win over Minnesota. Not the case. Washington football team absolutely dominated them both sides of the ball. They've crushed the Cowboys twice, holding to 3 points in the first game and just dominated them in the second game. Cowboys play calling was horrific. It made no sense. They faked punts. They went for a 4th down, were stopped. Zeke with another fumble. Zeke fantasy owners like myself have been disappointed all year. Rough game overall for the Cowboys, just brutal. No fantasy value. I mean, CeeDee Lamb's doing his best. He's a hell of an athlete. But other than that, I mean, Mark Cooper, a couple plays. Just a rough year for the Cowboys. Rough year for, Cowboy fans, Lions fans. My condolences. The Cowboys were 8-1 in their last 9 Thanksgiving games. They lost. They're now 8-2. Brutal game for them. Brutal game for Mike McCarthy, who I assume will get fired. And as far as recap goes, we were expecting to have a Steelers-Ravens game. That game has now been postponed until Tuesday. We've had a lot of injuries and COVID updates, and we will get into that now. Taking a look at injuries. Top name on the COVID injury list is Lamar Jackson. Test positive, will not play. RG3, former Offensive Rookie of the Year, will step in versus a menacing Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And he will not have either his running backs, J.K. Dobbins or Mark Ingram. Gus Edwards will be the plug-and-play option there. Steelers were not happy about how the Ravens handled the COVID procedures. Teams like the San Francisco 49ers were really hit hard by COVID. They were forced to play. The Ravens were allotted extra days. I expect a very, very, very tough matchup for RG3 and the Ravens versus a very motivated Steelers team. However, the Steelers can't be all high and mighty about COVID because James Conner is out with COVID on the reserve list. Wish him well. He's a former cancer survivor, so we do wish that he defeats the virus. And moving to a different game, we have the entire Broncos quarterback room is looking to be out this week. So they are going to possibly turn to absolute emergency plan quarterback, which is running back, Royce Freeman, former Oregon Duck. Played a little Wildcat quarterback at Oregon. They have all 4 of their guys. The 3 guys on the roster, and Blake Bortles signed the practice squad, all close contact ruled out. So they are going to absolute bottom of the barrel last plan for quarterback. They also have a practice squad receiver by the name of Kendall Hinton, who played 3 years at Wake Forest for quarterback, so one of them may suit up. An emergency plug-and-play may be Royce Freeman if he is indeed allowed to go. Time will tell. We'll get into that. Possibly he'll be a flex of the week. Looking at San Francisco, they are not really team-related, but they are currently working to relocate their stadium after San Francisco County recently passed a law against recreational sports activities or recreational activities in general. So not only cannot not play in San Francisco, they also cannot practice. So they are scrapping. They're looking for a new place to play that extends not just to the San Francisco Niners, but also college teams such as Stanford. So we hope they find a place to play. So that's something to keep an eye on for sure for players on the Niners. And on the Dolphins, Tua was downgraded to doubtful. So Ryan Fitzmagic will be back in the game. Could be a pretty good matchup. Fitzmagic's played well this year. Stepped in relief and didn't have much opportunity last week. The game was practically over. Speaking of Fitzpatrick's, we have Larry Fitzgerald is also out. He is on the COVID list. Everyone loves Larry. Never heard anyone say a bad thing about Fitzgerald. We hope he gets well soon. Speaking of stud receivers, we have Julio Jones questionable. He's been questionable all year with the hamstring that continues. It's just really made game time decisions with Julio. No updates as of today. We will see if he plays. Sticking to the receiver core, John Brown will be out this week. John Brown for the Bills, missing another game. Stephon Diggs should see a benefit of higher targets. Cole Beasley as well. DJ Chark for the Jags out. He's missed a lot of action this year. He misses another one. We do have Todd Gurley for the Falcons out. Rough year for the Falcons, a lot of injuries. No Todd Gurley. Nick Foles, his run as starter may be over for the Bears, not to play because due to injury, Mitch Trubisky will get another start and another crack at the Bears season, which is not yet over. They're still in the playoff mix. And that wraps up the injuries this week. Kind of depressing news about the COVID, a lot of COVID-related stuff. Hopefully everyone gets well that's been tested positive, and hopefully the games are, in fact, played. All right, getting into quarterbacks for the week. My must start is Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's back and only rostered at 3.6% of leagues. If you have Tua, go pick up Fitzpatrick. If you have Drew Lock, go pick up Fitzpatrick. If you have Nick Foles, Mitch Trubisky, go pick up Fitzpatrick. Only 3.6% of leagues right now. He's a definite great play. Looking into the stats, let's see what he's done the last few times he has started, as he had some starts this year, as you all know. If I can type this in. But in his last few games, his first matchup versus the Jets, he threw 3 touchdowns. He's thrown 3 touchdowns twice, 2 touchdowns twice. Looking at his fantasy points outside of New England in his first week, pretty bad game. He played well versus Buffalo, Jacksonville, Seattle, San Fran, and the Jets, all scoring pretty good amount of points. He's a good fantasy streamer. He's a good backup guy, good backup quarterback. If you're in a pretty deep league and you're struggling at quarterbacks, you had Dak go down, you have one of these guys I previously mentioned, go pick him up. He's playing the Jets. I mean, look, you're playing the Jets. They're god-awful. Throw him in. He's going to get you at least 16 to 20 points. He's a very good backup option. The thing that screams out at me is only 3.6% of rosters. If Tua, who's downgraded and doubtful, does not play, which he's not expected to, start Fitzpatrick. He's a great play here. Quarterback who I don't like is someone who's done well. I've not liked him a lot this week. He's been this year, been hot or cold. It's Matt Ryan. So instead of Matt Ryan in games that Julio Jones has not played in, he is only averaging 9 fantasy points per game. When he has Julio, he's great. One of the better quarterbacks in the league, fantasy-wise and statistically-wise. Without Julio, not so great. We can see this week 3 to week 5 run wasn't great. No Julio. Since he's come back, he's done fairly well. Pretty rough week last week versus the Saints. And, he's playing on paper. He's playing the Raiders, not the best pass defense, actually 5th worst in the league, gave up 272 yards per game. But the thing that Matt Ryan won't have this week is Todd Gurley. And the run game may be struggling with no Todd Gurley and no Julio Jones, possibly. I don't like Matt Ryan at all this week. And the Raiders are playing good football. Raiders have a lot to play for. Falcons not as much. Watson seems to agree with me. They're leaning heavy on the bust, 28% as opposed to 26% boom. He's been a really hot or cold candidate, like I said. Busted 3 times, boom 2 times. I think that, this could be bust, definitely could be bust. If those guys both don't play, and even if Julio plays, I think he's going to have a hard time versus the Raiders this week. Taking a look at the running backs this week, I love Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards and the Ravens seem to be the only team who has been able to have any success running the ball against Pittsburgh the last few years. In his first game versus the Steelers, he had 87 yards and a touchdown, and the Ravens ran for over 250 yards as a team. Taking a look at his game log, we can see week 8, that was his best week. He's boomed twice this year, busted just once. And he has been in the third-string running back role, but like we previously discussed, both Ingram and Dobbins will be out on the COVID reserve list, as well as Lamar Jackson. And sure, Lamar Jackson does open up a lot of running lanes for Gus Edwards and the running backs of the Ravens. But RG3 is a competent quarterback, former offensive rookie of the year. And although Pittsburgh does have a tough defense, they have surprisingly been vulnerable, at least versus the Ravens, against the run in recent meetings. Not much of a pass catcher. He's caught 3 passes all year. Hasn't done much pass catching, but he'll have a lot more opportunities. They're going to have a lot of checkdowns, I think, with RG3. I think Gus Edwards, by just pure necessity, is going to be out there a lot because they don't have the depth and the luxury of the other pass catchers. 27% chance boom and bust. I am leaning definitely more towards the boom. I don't think there's very little chance he busts just off pure opportunity he's going to receive. Tuesday night game, looking forward to watching this one, but Gus Edwards is my running back that I like this week. Running back who I'm not a huge fan of this week has been my guy that I've been waiting for to come back, Raheem Mostert. The Niners fantasy star and off-injured player has finally returned. He's been activated, expected to play, and should be starting versus the Rams. The problem is the Rams have a damn good defense. They are the top defense in the league this year. They are statistically fifth against the run and second against the pass. They have Aaron Donald. And I think this week may be a week to ease Mostert back into things. I think this is a week where the Niners may look to do some things by committee. But look at his game logs. He's played fantastic. And I know a lot of people like myself who's having an IR waiting for him to come back. I've been looking forward to it. His yards per carry since last year leads the league. He's electric when he gets the ball. I just think that this isn't the matchup to yet bring him back. So for me, I am personally going to leave him on the bench for another week and let him come back next week versus a Buffalo team that you can run the football on. And he's got, looking down the road, you got Dallas, you have Arizona and Seattle, all, Seattle pretty good run defense, but all of them you can run the football on, including Washington. So I'd stay away from Mostert for one more week away from Mostert. Taking a look at receivers of the week, first receiver we'll start with is Tyler Boyd. The unfortunate injury to Joe Burrow sucks, but I think someone who will maintain his value is Tyler Boyd. First reason is he's playing the slot and not the outside. I think that Brandon Allen, who we expect to be the new starter for the Bengals, should be able to get a lot of short under outs, slants, outs, all that to Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's been great. He's been the 57th ranked player overall in fantasy. He's has a matchup against the Giants, who are giving up 257.7 yards per game through the air, which is good for 24th best in the NFL. Look at his game log. He's killed it. This year he's been great. He's had only 2 weeks in the single digits. He's come off of last week versus the tough Washington football team pass defense, actually the top in the league. And that pass defense he did well against. 9 catches, 85 yards. I think that him being in the slot as opposed to the outside will maintain his fantasy value and really keep him remained as the only playable Bengals fantasy wide receiver. And kind of transitioning on that point, getting into staying on the Bengals receivers, looking at T. Higgins as someone who I would fade this week. He's been great this week, looking at his game log, or great this year, I should say. Ever since the first 2 weeks, he's came on and scored double digits in every week up until this last game versus the Washington football team. And I think with him being on the outside, he's going to have a harder time with Brandon Allen at quarterback instead of Joe Burrow. We already know how plagued the Bengals offensive line is. I think Brandon Allen lacks a lot of mobility and ability to create something out of nothing that Joe Burrow had, and few people really have except for Joe Burrow. And he's going to struggle. They're going to struggle getting the ball downfield. They won't have much time to pass. Teams will stack the box and dare Brandon Allen to throw. And I think someone who is going to not benefit from that is T. Higgins. So T. Higgins is someone I would not start at wide receiver or flex. I would wait at least this week and see how he looks versus the Giants. He's got another tough matchup versus the Dolphins next week, but he's something that I'm fading. And who I am sitting this week would be every single Broncos wide receiver. Unless Jerry Jeudy magically convinces his coaches via Twitter to start at quarterback, the Broncos are going to have Royce Freeman most likely throwing the ball. Royce Freeman is a running back. I don't really need to say anymore. The Broncos haven't been good throw the ball anyways. The Saints are a really great defense. Tough game for the Broncos. I'm surprised the NFL is making them play it. But you want to sit all the Bronco wide receivers this week. Taking a look at the flex of the week, really high upside guy will be Brian Hill for the Falcons. Like we already talked about, Matt Ryan really dependent on not only the run game, but also Julio Jones. But who's stepping up for Todd Gurley? Since Todd Gurley's out, Brian Hill. Huge boom projections here. The Raiders are a top 15 run defense, not too great, but they are giving up 112 yards per game, which is good for top 15. I think it's just a good opportunity for Brian Hill of all the guys that have really been scheming on the waiver wire for, or people we don't, as far as people we don't know how good they are already this year. Mostly through 11 weeks, we know who's a good fantasy player, who's not a good fantasy player, who's in a tough situation, who's not. I think Brian Hill, of all the people available, he's available, he's been only rostered in just short of 21% of leagues. We've seen a 15.6% delta in that this week. I think that if you are looking, once again, playoff time, you have injuries, or you're just looking for someone to start at flex this week, you've had a hard time with certain players, this is your guy. He's busted twice, boomed once. His game log not too impressive, but he hasn't really started before. Only ran for one touchdown, no receiving. I think he's just got good opportunity. The Falcons have had a rough year, and he's going to be the next guy up for them. So I think as far as wild card goes, pretty good matchup. Not super excited about him at either one of the running back spots, but as far as flex goes, as far as the people I'm seeing on the waiver wire, he is the biggest upside guy you could start at flex this week. Wild card of the week is, as previously talked about, Royce Freeman could be playing quarterback and running back. Let's check his designation on ESPN. Royce Freeman played a little wild card at Oregon, and if he does play, he could be an opportunity at the flex position because he is listed at running back on ESPN. He may be getting quarterback reps. I'm not saying he'll throw the ball well. Who knows? He may throw it 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. I don't know. Might not even start at quarterback. Wild card of the week, though, he's definitely someone to consider. Almost no projections. They're still factoring in as just strictly running back. But I think he's only rostered 0.7% of leagues. If you were really in need of a flex, deeper leagues, go pick him up. He's definitely your flex, wild card flex of the week. But he could be a guy that could throw for a touchdown, run for a touchdown, a lot of attempts, possibly a lot of usage. The Broncos are going to be out all their quarterbacks. So someone's going to have to play that's never played before. Whether it's Royce Freeman or whether it's Kendall Hinton or Jerry Jeudy, who's lobbying on Twitter to play, just really keep your eye on the situation. And if you have someone like Freeman or Jeudy would be a better case, he's more of a playable guy at receiver. If he plays, throw him in at flex no matter what because they're going to get a lot of opportunity. The Saints have a really good defense. They've really trended up as of the latter part of the year. But Royce Freeman, I think, is going to have some opportunity. I mean, look what he's done. Not much. But he's never played quarterback before. And it's going to be a unique situation to watch for Denver. I'm really looking forward to the Denver and Saints game, believe it or not. Hopefully they still play it. I think there's some concern that they will cancel or move it, but we'll see. Look forward to that game. That is a wrap. Week 12 play call with Keenan, sponsored to you by Incede.ai. Good luck watching football this weekend. Hope your fantasy teams do well, and go Hawks.